The Independent Broadcasting Authority has said it's about to take applications from people who want to set up their own community radio stations. It plans to license 20 under government proposals to allow more stations. Some of them will broadcast for ethnic minorities. The IBA says more than 500 groups have already said they're interested. 6 stations will be in London and 1 in Belfast.
British Rail food is now the property of some of the people who make it. Travellers' Fare, BR's sandwich and bun division, has been bought by its managers, and they've paid £20 million for it.
British Rail say jokes about their fly-blown sandwiches and veteran pork pies are stale and out of date, resorted to only by people who never use their modern station snack bars. Their Travellers' Fare buffets have a variety of bright new brand names, such as Upper Crust and Casey Jones, offering fashionable fast food. The buffets have been bought by their own managers, who've paid over £20 million to run them as a private group. Their turnover last year was £74 million. Their profits over £7 million, and those, they say, come from appreciative customers.
More variety and better presented.
I think it's more efficient, there's more choice.
But it's not all unstinting praise.
This cup of tea tastes very good, but not so good as I make myself.
36 caterers competed to buy the Travellers' Fare buffets, which have about 3,500 employees.
Well, I think you'll see the branding coming through more strongly, and you'll see the products being developed and sharpened up.
The new owners say they've been competing for years beside other private caterers, and they're confident they've outlived the public appetite for jokes about their cuisine.
Finally, there were 100 smiles and 1 slightly bald head at St James's Palace this afternoon when the youngest royal, Princess Beatrice of York, was christened. After the service, the Duke and Duchess, parents of Beatrice Elizabeth Mary, managed to look a little bit happier than she did. The baby was christened by the Archbishop of York, Dr. John Hapgood. Her grandmother, the Queen, looked on. Bee, who's 5th in line to the throne, was quiet during the service. She wore the same Honiton lace robe worn by all royal babies at their christenings and was anointed with water from the River Jordan. Bee is just 19 weeks old and is still getting used to dealing with the world's press.
And that was the 6 o'clock news on Tuesday, the 20th of December. A department store in Plymouth was badly damaged by fire. Animal rights activists are suspected. A spokesman for the store said the last time Dingles was destroyed, it was by the Luftwaffe.
A new inquest was ordered into the death of 3 IRA men shot by the RUC. A Northern Ireland politician said this will restore some of the faith in the process of justice here.
And the United Nations called for a world summit to save children from disease. The director of UNICEF said 3 million children died last year for want of 40 pence worth of vaccine. That's it. Good night.
Meeting some of those special people who tell their stories to Derek Jameson in a Christmas edition of People After the News from the South East in London Plus.
Murder hunt launched after a woman's body is discovered in Wimbledon. Security boost as the Tube gets 50 new police officers. And the Prince of Wales celebrates 50 years of India in London. Good evening. We'll be reporting on the murder in Wimbledon later in the programme. First, though, amid worries of increased violence on the London Underground, the government today announced that 50 extra police officers are to be appointed to help protect London's travellers. Only 10 days ago, a student was stabbed to death at Holborn Underground Station and another man was killed a day later at Waterloo. The Junior Transport Minister, Michael Portillo, has also unveiled plans to improve safety communications underground. Antonia Higgs reports.
More than 18,000 crimes have been reported on London's underground system this year. Less than 2 weeks ago, a 17-year-old Turkish student was killed in a knife attack at Holborn Station. With the number of offences now more than 20 times greater than in 1980, the government has decided to act.
First of all, increasing the number of police officers on the underground, the British Transport Police Officers. We're putting them up from 350 to 400. and we last increased the number just a couple of years ago. So over a 2-year period, it's an enormous increase.
Are 50 extra policemen enough?
Well, that's the question that you ask any senior police officer. I doubt very much whether you ever get them to say yes. It's certainly an extremely valuable addition to our force at the moment.
The increased numbers of police will also be better equipped. New radios already being tried out at some stations mean that for the first time, officers in trouble can summon help directly.
If something happened now, I could transmit a message to my information room via this from here, rather than disappearing, maybe leaving another officer here on his own. We could both deal with the incident. We know that we'd have help coming because of the message from underground.
London Underground's already been given £15 million to improve tube safety. At Balham, one of the high-priority stations, trials of a new video system have produced a dramatic reduction in the crime rate.
Let's just imagine on this particular TV picture, it's the northbound platform at Balham. This particular passenger here, we noticed, was being attacked. Now, what we could do is make passenger announcements on the passenger address system, get the foreman to go down and help him out. But in the meantime, of course, the assailant may escape, and we could follow him quite easily just by following on the bottom part of the escalators, like so, and maybe getting a clear picture. And also up on the escalator, we can move the camera over a bit and follow him on going up the escalator. And there is no way that that man or woman can escape from the station without getting a decent picture of him somewhere.
Of course, it would be impossible, however many policemen you had, to have one in every corner of every station. But when you give them closed-circuit television, and when you give them radios that work underground, then you equip them for the fight against crime. And then one man really goes a very long way in providing protection and security for the passengers.
Many of the people who travel on the underground and government critics might say this is simply too little, too late.
We acted very quickly. I mean, long before the recent rise in crime, we had asked for a report on the policing of the underground. And it was that report by an independent inspector that recommended the increase in officers from 350 to 400. So we have stuck closely by that report. But we have also taken this opportunity to ensure that no lack of investment is going to hold those police officers back from doing the best job.
The crime figures for 1989 will be the real test of whether the measures announced today do make London's underground a safer place.
That report from Antonia Higgs. 20 Kent firefighters were airlifted onto a stricken ferry when it caught fire in the Channel this morning. There were more than 400 people on board the Sally Line's newest vessel, the Sally Star. She was on her way from Ramsgate to Dunkirk and was only 4 miles outside the Kent port when a huge fire broke out. No one was hurt, but the blaze crippled 2 of the ship's 4 engine rooms. This report from Jaldeep Katwala.
The incident began just before 10 this morning on the 9,000-ton Sally Star. She was carrying 373 passengers and 109 crew. The Kent Fire Brigade say the blaze began near the main boiler. The brigade airlifted more than 20 firemen by helicopter to the scene. The fire was contained to the vessel's engine room, though at one point it was thought everyone on board would need to be evacuated. Fire crews used special thermal imaging equipment to establish the extent of the blaze. The heat from the fire was so intense that paintwork on the ferry was blistered. She was still smouldering as she made her way back to Ramsgate. The ferry eventually returned to port 4 hours after the incident began. A spokesman for the Sally Line company said the fire was contained by an onboard gas system which sealed off the engine room by pumping carbon dioxide inside. The Sally Star had only just come into service on the Ramsgate-Dunkirk route. The ferry's owners and the Department of Transport have both launched an investigation into the incident.
Animal rights activists have claimed responsibility for the series of firebombs found in London and around the country. In the latest incidents, a device found at the offices of Fur Review in the city was safely defused this afternoon. It follows 3 firebomb attacks on department stores in London at Harrods, Selfridges and House of Fraser in Oxford Street. Department stores around the country are on alert after other attacks in Cardiff, Birmingham and Plymouth. Postboxes are being sealed tonight in 10 districts of southwest London because of a dispute about Christmas overtime. Sorting office staff in postal districts from SW2 to SW20 are refusing to work any overtime because they couldn't agree on the extra hours being offered by the management. The Post Office says that extra casual workers are being brought in to cope with the backlog of mail, and mail posted by the Christmas closing dates should still get through. A South East MP has warned that there could be more night flights and a fifth terminal at Heathrow if government estimates of passenger traffic are fulfilled. Government figures released today predict that the numbers of passengers using London's airports may double in the next 20 years. David Wilshire, the Conservative MP for Spelthorne, says that Heathrow is running at capacity during the day already. 12 people are still being questioned about a series of violent crimes in Surrey. The 11 men and 1 woman were arrested in South London yesterday. They're being interviewed at 4 police stations in Surrey. 4 of the people are being held in connection with the murder of a man in Wallingham. British Rail's internal inquiry into last week's Clapham train crash has ended. It was extended to a 5th day when more staff came forward to give evidence about the collision in which 34 people died. On Friday, a preliminary report suggested that the faulty installation of new signalling equipment was the cause of the disaster. Well, look now at the weather forecast for the southeast, and temperatures will actually rise overnight, leading to a mild night with a little bit of drizzle. The minimum temperature is going to be 7 Celsius, that's 45 degrees Fahrenheit. And tomorrow will be very mild and mainly dry, with a few brighter intervals by the afternoon. Top temperature, that's 12 Celsius, that's 54 degrees Fahrenheit.
Well, we can now go to the story that we headlined. Police in South London have launched a murder hunt after the body of a young woman was discovered in Wimbledon. The body was found earlier today in allotments by police searching for a woman from South Norwood who had been reported missing. Lorraine Benson had telephoned a friend from Rains Park Station late last night to say she was on her way. She never arrived. The press conference ended a short while ago at Wimbledon Police Station, from where Pauline Anstis sends this report.
Lorraine Benson's partially clothed body was found around lunchtime this afternoon in allotments off Coombe Lane in Rains Park. The blonde-haired